Tonight's cover story, a celebration of Black history and a warning about what can happen when we don't actively protect our cultural landmarks.
Tonight, WGN's Mike Lowe brings you rare footage from his days as a student at Northwestern when he and his classmates produced a documentary about the legendary Palm Tavern in Bronzeville and its owner, Jerry Oliver, who died last December.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Sometimes what's missing
1922
is more important
didn't hold much promise
than what's there.
for a young black girl of 2. And I'm gonna see Miss Jerry one more time.
This empty lot is all that's left of what was once the Palm Tavern. And now the woman who made the Bronzeville bar a beacon of Black Chicago is gone too. Jerry Oliver died in December at the age of 101. Grammy-nominated blues musician Billy Branch wrote, "Going to see Miss Jerry one more time," as a sort of letter of both love and lament.
When I wrote that song, I felt that it was just such a travesty, the way that the Palm was closed and that she left without any commemoration, without any celebration. I mean, the Palm Tavern should have had monumental status. This was an institutional treasure.
Instead of a monument, it's a memory. The Palm Tavern was torn down in 2001.
She was fighting City Hall.
The city seized the property through eminent domain as Alderman Dorothy Tillman sought to build the Harold Washington Center and remake 47th Street into a blues district. But in the months before that happened,
if these walls could talk, they tell you some real stories.
this reporter produced a documentary about Jerry Oliver.
When you came to 47th Street, you dressed up.
Some of the only existing footage of the last days of the Palm Tavern.
We gonna play blues tonight.
It had an atmosphere about it that you walked in, you just felt like, this is it. I'm where I need to be. This is home.
I'm gonna go down to the Palm Tavern.
The Palm Tavern opened in 1933. Prohibition had just ended.
It was the first tavern on the street, first place on the street that could legitimately sell liquor.
Genial Jim Knight, the honorary mayor of Bronzeville, was the first owner. He named the spot after the palm trees of an African oasis.
Literary types, anybody who was anybody in the African American community would stop in there.
This statue is a monument to the Great Migration, a bronze figure made from the soles of shoes of the 500,000 black people who left the South in search of freedom and opportunity in Chicago and set their suitcases down in Bronzeville, a city within the city that became known as the Black Metropolis.
47th Street was the Michigan Avenue of this part of town.
Oliver took over for Knight and ran the Palm Tavern for nearly 50 years. The famed Regal Theater was right across the street, and after shows there, the likes of Miles Davis, Josephine Baker, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, and Duke Ellington all would visit.
It's the place that a Louis Armstrong would have put his arm on here and talked to a young Dizzy Gillespie.
Well, I think the thing that makes it so great is that it's run by a strong African-American woman.
When I say Mississippi, you say Mama Mississippi.
To performers and patrons alike, Oliver became known as Mama Jerry, a nickname of both authority and affection.
We didn't call her Jerry. We gave her the respect. I go to work in the morning.
Chicago blues musician and playwright Fernando Jones staged his play, I Was There When the Blues Was Red Hot. and through almost 300 performances, kept the doors open at the Palm Tavern for its last 3 years.
It's gonna drive me mad. It's gonna drive me mad.
And so we started rehearsing for a few months right here, back in the summer and the fall of 1998.
We assembled a few of the last performers
These are sacred grounds.
ever to take the stage at the Palm Tavern.
So the Palm Tavern was actually right here.
And it was at a time when I was...
To reminisce about the history,
I was searching for a place to be. And this was the place. You know, it's like, oh, don't mess with her. Don't play with her. Come real or else get the heck out.
and remember Jerry Oliver's legacy shortly after her death in December.
But Mama Jerry was probably 5 feet tall, okay? With an afro that probably made her look like she was about 5'4". Like the song 5'4" and don't need no more.
Driving down the street, he saw the smoke coming out of the buildings. One of the people who knew the owner of the Palm Tree Tavern told the officer that she was asleep in the back room. He woke her up and he got her out of there.
Her tough reputation allowed her to survive as a single woman running a business in what would become a tough part of town.
I mean, when you live in the hood, you figure out how to survive, you know, because or else you can't be in the hood.
From the tavern's front window, she watched Bronzeville's decline as the crack epidemic ravaged 47th Street in the 1980s, and the decline continued through the 90s.
The Palm Tavern is the last of the era up until now. And if they destroy this, there will be no connection to what used to be, because there'd be nothing for you to connect it with. Out of sight, out of mind.
That warning echoes today in the few businesses left on 47th Street. A barbecue joint.
31.
And a barber shop.
A piece of history that was gone. It was like more of a landmark than a bar. Right. It was great conversation. You got to see all the famous people on the wall that she dealt with.
It was torn down for nothing.
I said it's raining again.
20 years ago.
And sometimes I feel like I was born to lose.
Pioneer Jerry Oliver fought to save a piece of Bronzeville history.
Here I'm a little country girl coming from Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to Chicago, a big city. I don't know. It had to be by someone's will other than mine for me to be put in the position that I've ended up in. But I suppose it's all by design.
And today, it's up to the musicians she nurtured to keep telling that story in the places where the past is missing.
What does that leave the citizens? What does that leave the residents? You know, it destroys the culture and it in turn destroys the identity. But she was a person that brought so many great people together.
In Bronzeville, Mike Lowe, WGN News.
What a great story. In the year 2000, then Mayor Richard M. Daley declared February 13th to be Jerry Oliver Day in Chicago. And tonight, my mother just told me about how she and my aunt used to lunch at the Palm Tavern. Lots of history there.
Wow, memories and part of the culture kept alive in that story. Thanks, Mike.
One of the biggest challenges we have as parents